Hey there, viewers. It's Charlie. I'm back again with another Transformers review. And today's review is going to be on War for Cybertron Trilogy, Earthrise Megatron. Now, this guy is obviously meant to be Siege Megatron, just retooled so his tank mode is more Earth-styled. And well, I actually quite like this tank mode. Now, of course, we do have the box to look at. And of course, we've got the standard Earthrise packaging. So you got a picture of Megatron just, I know, angrily cursing out the arc. As was me, because the figure is just too big to review. Because I'm not good at reviewing figures. Got Megatron's name with English and Cybertronian lettering. This side we got all the characters in Earthrise, whether that be the toy line or the show. We've got Megatron in both modes. That's pretty much it. Well, of course, we do have the map inside to look at. And I'm showing the map because, well, this time it's actually got a planet on it. If we can see that, we've actually got Cybertron. I mean, this is the war for Galvatron after all. Fortunately not the game, but oh well. Well, getting onto the figure. As stated, this is pretty much Siege Megatron, but as an Earth tank. So, the H-Tank syndrome is gone now. We still have the scratch marks though. I mean, it does make sense for this kind of vehicle. You know, tanks are usually war vehicles, so it makes sense for them to be all scratched up because they have to go over rough terrain. We've got a D16, or that could be a DI6. I'm pretty sure it's meant to be like D16, because I'm pretty sure it's meant to reference Megatron's old Japanese serial number back in the G1 toy line in Japan. We've got a Decepticon insignia right there. The back. Got this panel, which, well, we'll get to that later. This side, pretty much the same. Got the tank turret. And of course it is blast effect compatible. So if you just want them shooting at some Autobots, and there you go. Like with the Siege figure, we just have the fusion cannon just right there in the middle. Kind of harkens back to the G2 figure, which there is a G2 Select repaint of this guy, which I do really want to get because he'll go well with my Legacy Laser Prime figure. And there are some ports for a blast effect if you want him getting shot at. I don't know, maybe by Jetfire or something. So if you want that look going on. And the underneath, of course, it's just Megatron all scrunched up. And for some reason, we've got like a stand port there. I mean, sure. I mean, of course there is one there, but that's for the robot mode. Now, of course, this being a tank, the turret can rotate. Although I found this could just be my copy, but this could be quite loose. So I found if you move this little peg down, it kind of locks it. Or at least it does for me. So yeah. No, that's pretty much it for the tank mode. Now, for a comparison with some other Megatrons. Here he is with Combat Megatron, so you can see how he scales with the original Siege mold. So you can see how they went from an H tank to a standard tank. There's no panel this time. Well, there's no panel with the Siege mold, I mean. And you can see how they're handling the turrets a bit differently. Here we have Shattered Glass Megatron in his tank mode. And of course, here's Shattered Glass Megatron in jet mode, which is his official mode. So you can see how they compare. Here he is with Beast Wars Megatron. Definitely a much bigger figure. If we can get him to stand. There we go. So you can see how they look together. And finally, with Galvatron. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the vehicle mode. I do really like it. Sure, it does have the scuff marks from the Siege figures, but that doesn't really bother me. If anything, my only complaint would be like the loose turret, but oh well. And maybe like the visible feet, because I mean, with the Cybertronian tank, that can be forgiven because, you know, it's a space tank, but with this being an Earth vehicle, I mean, they could have, like, come up with a step where these, like, fully fold in or something. I don't know. I'm not a toy designer, but yeah, those would be my only complaints with the tank mode. But, well, if I can just get the other Mega / Galvatrons transformed for the comparison later on. There we go. But that took a while. But well, to get this guy transformed, well, it requires a bit of parts forming, unfortunately. But to start, we're just going to remove this back panel. So if you wanted to, this could just be an optional step if you don't actually want to go through the trouble of attaching this every time you transform him. And just like the Siege version, remove the turret. There we go. And you can see, unlike the Siege version where there were blades that folded up into the turret, this version, it's pretty much just a blade attached onto a turret. So, yeah. So you lift this up, and you attach the panel onto this. So, yeah. We just set that off to the side for now. Now, the transformation is pretty much the Siege version, although, well, there are a couple of differences. So to start, we'll just get the feet up. One difference being seeing how the treads now actually combine instead of just being in each tank, they now actually tab into each other. Of course, you still unlock that section, just spin the legs around. This can get quite tight sometimes, to the point where this section moves, while this section just doesn't move. There we go. The same for the other leg. That was much easier. Get the heels out. Once again, really tight. Spin around the waist. And we've already got the legs done. Now come in here. Pull the front of the tank out. Untab it from here. Just push these sections in. Untap the arms. It's much tighter in this version. Just spin them around. Of course, this section goes into the back. Try and get the head up. Get the hands out. Rotate around the fusion cannon. And there you go. I'll give him the blade, the thing I just dropped later. But well, taking a look at Megatron in his robot mode, I mean, it's cool, but the charm that the tank mode had is kind of lost in the robot mode, in my opinion. Of course, he's got those huge, like, back blocks that the Siege version had. If you don't mind Megatron not being able to transform, you can remove these for a clean it back, but yeah. Taking a look at the head. I think this is one reason the charm of the figure is lost on me in robot mode. Like, the head looks a bit eh. In fact, I can sum it up in a couple words. Wide along face. Like, if this figure kept the head sculpt of the Siege version, I like it a bit more. I'd do a face swap, but I don't want to risk breaking the head's joints. Yeah, I'm not risking breaking the ball joint, so unfortunately he's gonna be stuck with his head. Now, thankfully, they did actually fix a problem that the Siege version had. If you remember, the Siege version had an issue where the head would just not stay in place. It'd either, like, go up really far, or it would just keep pushing down into itself. Whereas with the Earthrise version, it takes a bit of effort to push the head in. And likewise a bit of effort to push the head back up. But there's some tabs that make sure the head does not go upwards. So thankfully he's not going to be, his head's not going to be flapping about all crazily, so that is one good thing. Of course, we still have the battle damage, which does kind of fit Megatron's character. Now just giving him his accessory, Well, first of all, I do have a complaint with this. This thing drops off if you look at it funny. Like, if you're just trying to put the thing on his arm, this panel can come off really easily. I mean, granted, the panel is optional, but it still is annoying. Now, you can have him holding this as like a gun or a huge punch dagger, or you can give him a second fusion cannon by just plugging this into his arm. So you can have that look going on. However, my preferred weapon for him is just the sword. I mean, it's a bit loose here, but it's still cool, in my opinion. I mean, I do prefer the sword of the siege molds way more, but this is still cool. Now, just like with the tank turrets in the vehicle mode, the fusion cannon can of course take blast effects. So if you want to have him shooting a Starscream, or if you want to give him like rocket feet, blasting off after, I don't know, retreating, because that's pretty much most of what the Decepticons did in the first 2 seasons, if I remember correctly. Or what I like to do, the laser feet. I know, could be like he stepped on a human, it's just the blood from said human dripping off his feet. So yeah. Now for comparison, here's Combat Megatron, so you can see the siege mold. You can definitely see the superior sword, in my opinion. Here's Shattered Glass Megatron. I can actually get him to stand correctly. There we go. Here's Beast Wars Megatron. And finally, here's Galvatron. Now for our... Let's try to get this off. For this figure's articulation, once again, pretty much like the Siege version. So the head can of course move. You can kind of look up with the ball joint there. Can kind of look down into himself, but this time you actually need to do it with a bit of force. Oh, that click always gets me. Of course, the arms can move. You can T-pose really well. I mean, you can pretty much just assert dominance on the other Decepticons here. So got an elbow joint that can swivel. Hands don't rotate, unfortunately, but they can go in. Thanks to the transformation, he does have a waist swivel. Unfortunately, kind of hindered by this, I think. Yeah, kind of hindered. So I can't go 360, unfortunately. Legs can go forward that far. Can't go back that far, unfortunately. Got a thigh swivel. Good knee joint. Do the splits. Got an ankle pivot. And unlike the Siege version, the ankles are not on a lock. They can just move freely. Or on my copy, the ankles are a bit loose. And well, one thing I like to do with this figure if you remember the throne that came with Coronation Starscream, I felt like it didn't really suit him. But with this guy, and in fact with Siege Megatron, it fits really well. I mean, to be fair, the seat the seat is meant to be something that Megatron did sit on in one episode of the series, so this does make sense. And well, I think I'm going to conclude it here. So, my complaints of this figure, well, I do actually have a few. Of course, this bit comes off quite easily on the spear weapon, which in itself I'm not a fan of. I mean, I kind of wish that this would just come off and be like a shoulder cannon, like what did, just like what G2 Megatron did. Because keep in mind, this guy got a select redeco as G2 Megatron, or if it combined with the fusion cannon in some way. I also think the joint tolerances are all over the place. Like, there's some joints that are really tight, such as the arms, and some joints that are just way too loose, such as the tank turret joint in the vehicle mode, and the ankles. I also think the head looks quite weird. I mean, keep in mind, wide long face. If he just kept the head sculpt from Siege Megatron, I would have definitely liked it a bit more. Well, do I recommend this figure? Well, the main reason I bought this figure was because I had a whole bunch of other Megatrons on my shelf, and I didn't even have the OG, bucket helmet Megatron. So, I just bought this guy because I didn't have one, and you know. But, I'd say go for Siege Megatron instead. I mean, he's got the better looking robot mode, but I think I mainly bought this guy because, one, I didn't have the standard Megatron. I just had like different variations of him and different Beast Force Megatron as well. And two, I just think the tank mode looks kind of neat. But unless you really want this guy, I'd say go for the Siege figure instead. But well, that's pretty much my review on the Earthrise Megatron. And this is Charlie Young, signing off.